Okay guys, important topic, carbs. Carbs are a never-ending source of confusion and arguments in the online fitness world because ultimately people don't seem to understand that carbs is a huge range of different types of foods. Just like there's many different sources of protein, there's many different sources of fats. And if you pick the wrong ones, you're going to get fat. If you pick the right ones, you're going to get jacked, basically, assuming you're training. So I want to talk about distinguishing between the bad carbs and the good carbs. Obviously we're oversimplifying this here, but certain carb sources will raise your testosterone levels, they will, and they will massively improve your physique, whilst other carb sources will do the opposite. They'll lead to body fat gain, estrogen levels rising, and then testosterone levels plummeting. So I think the first thing we have to look at with carbs is that you've got to tailor them to your activity level, which means a couple of things. The more calories you burn, the more carbs you can get away with. Whereas if you take the typical low T, desk jockey kind of guy who just sits down all day, couch potato, that's the word, doesn't really train, doesn't lift weights, doesn't really do anything, he's just hunched over a computer all day, he better be doing keto or he's going to get obese. He's going to be really fat. Even fruits and potatoes might be pushing it with him. So yeah, keto carnivore makes sense for a guy like that. If you're quite active, even if you just walk for half an hour every day and then you lift weights 4 times a week, if you do MMA once a week, quite a lot of you guys are into MMA or BJJ, you're going to need way more carbs. And if you don't get the carbs, you're going to lose muscle. I promise you this is true. It's not effective for gaining muscle. And then people always say, tell me exactly how it does it. Well, it's all kinds of things. It's glycogen, it's energy, it's cortisol levels, it's sleep. They all start going off. Your stress hormones get way too high if you try to do keto and then lift like a savage 4 or 5 days a week and do a little bit of cardio as well. It's a really bad idea. So you've got to get your activity level up and you've got to train hard. If you lift weights really intensely, the carbs are going to go to your muscle glycogen stores. They're going to be bringing the cortisol levels down again. You're going to sleep better. You're going to get more jacked, I promise you. So that's the first thing. It depends on you and what you're doing. If you sat down all day, you're going to have to avoid carbs or reduce them. If you're very, very active, especially if you're well under the age of 40, which I believe is most of you watching this, you're going to need some carbs. Men who are like 55, 60 years old tend to need less. It's just a metabolic thing. As we get older, we don't need as many. But so it starts with you. And then the next big kind of factor you've got to think about is the carbs themselves. What sort of carbs are we talking about? So carbs, I love how the word's just been demonized since the early noughties. Carbohydrates include a humongous range of different foods. Most vegetables are pure carbs. Is broccoli making anyone fat? No. Is an apple going to make you fat? No. What else is there? Carrots are pretty much mostly carbs. Are carrots going to make you fat? No. So it's become this stupid marketing slogan. But if you actually look at the meaning, what a carbohydrate is, there's so many different types of them. It's silly. Now, if we're talking, the ones you want to avoid are the ones that, unless you're running marathons and stuff like that, or you're a pro athlete, the ones you generally want to avoid are the ones that are going to spike the hell out of your blood sugar. Again, if you're running a marathon, that's going to put serious downward blood pressure on your blood sugar. For most people watching this though, these carbs are going to spike your blood sugar and they're going to do it badly. Then the insulin happens, then the testosterone gets suppressed. It's going to be things like breads, cereals, pasta. They're the big 3 carbs that so many people eat every day, and they don't realize that it's causing them so many problems, not to mention the digestive problems as well. they're probably the big three obvious ones. I think everyone knows. You're probably the best not to be eating cookies and Haribo and sweets and chocolate cake, like obviously. That's not going to be good for your hormones, your body fat percentage and things like that. But yeah, I think the big three problem areas that people downplay are going to be breads, cereals, pasta. So you've got the addiction side, you've got the blood sugar side of things. You've also got to think about the addiction side of things as well. Most of these foods are very addictive, mostly because of the carbs and the sugar, but also the lack of fiber and the lack of protein are big problems as well. And they just taste good, and they are made to be this way on purpose. Especially if we're talking pure junk food, they are manufactured to be as addictive as humanly possible. Think about things like Pringles. If you have one, you can't just have one Pringle, especially like sour cream, in my opinion. You can't just have one, can you? You've got to now have 10 more and then another 20 afterwards. They're very, very addictive. And that's not done by accident. You get hooked on foods like that, it's very, very difficult to stay lean. Again, unless you're a marathon runner or something unusual. But breads, pastas and cereals, I mean, they can taste really good as well, but less extreme, of course. I spoke a lot about how I used to be pretty much addicted to cereal when I was younger, because I used to put loads of sugar on as well and like other things, and it made it basically impossible for me to get below 15% body fat, because I was addicted to this high glycemic index carb that had very little fiber, very little protein, and it just makes you want more and more food. You can have 3,000 calories and still be hungry. Like, think about that, that's crazy. Whereas now I'll eat 2,500 calories and I'll be stuffed, because I'm eating very different foods. Far higher in protein, far higher in fiber as well. Far more voluminous in your stomach. It takes up more space, which is useful if you're trying to get leaner. So yeah, those are the sort of carbs you want to avoid. The carbs you want to get are the carbs that are far more nutrient dense, far heavier in fiber. So fruits, potatoes. I've kind of gone on about these a lot in the past. You eat loads of these foods, they're never going to make you fat. I would challenge you to get fat eating apples and oranges. It's just not going to happen. There's too much fiber. You'll get very full very soon doing that. It's the stuff that people are shoveling down the necks when no one else is looking, on the weekends in particular. The things that people like to forget about, you know. I've been coaching people for many, many years. We have a funny way of not being honest with ourselves. That's the first, most foundational thing. We like to ignore the bad stuff and just focus on the good. Feel like a good boy. And that's fine, but yeah, the carbs that are going to get you jacked, you should have fruits pre-workout and post-workout. I know I certainly do. Potatoes, basmati rice would probably be the best, or the least bad source of rice. Sourdough bread is also usually fine as long as you don't overdo it. It's still not satiating, it's still not high protein, so I would just have that as like a filling in the gap sort of carbs. If you're going to have it post-workout. Post-workout is when you can be a bit more flexible with your carbs, because the carbs are going to be used, you know, if you trained hard, those carbs are going to be shuttled into the right areas. Same with the protein. Where you really want to be careful are when you have like a lazy Sunday where you barely get out the house at all, you're barely moving. I would not be having loads of carbs on days like that. Obviously, depends on your age, depends on how much muscle mass you have, depends on how much training you've done all week. There's other factors, but you get my point. So that's it with carbs. Carbs, if you use them properly, I promise you this is true. Don't fall for the keto brainwashing bull. If you train hard, you're lifting like a savage. I would not be as jacked as I am now if I was doing keto the whole time. It's ridiculous to think you're going to get big and strong eating 0 carbs. It's not going to happen. But if you get them wrong, carbs are very anabolic. They will grow the body. If you don't have the right stimulus in the first place, though, you get them wrong, you're just going to get fat. I think everyone knows that. So if there's no correct stimulus, no correct training, it's just going to grow the body outwards in terms of the belly and all the wrong areas. If there is the right stimulus, it will grow the body in the right sort of areas, but it's up to you to provide that stimulus first. Now, as you can see, the weather is improving. People are talking about getting in shape for the beach. If you want to learn exactly how to do that, check out this video. Talk about all the right things to focus on. It is not abs, it's not core work. It's no use training abs if you've got body fat in the way. So I talk about that in that video, check it out.